I would like to call the October 21st, 2025 meeting of the North Smithfield School Committee to order at 6:31 p.m. Roll call, please.
Chair Bartimoli,
Here.
Mrs. Mayo,
Here.
Mr. Connell,
Here.
Mr. De La Cruz,
Here.
Mr. Simpkins.
Here.
We have a quorum. If we could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have item 3 for public comment is a presentation by the trust regarding insurance requirement.
They're coming at 7.
Oh.
Yeah, we're moving into executive, and then when we come out,
Okay.
we'll do the presentation by the trust and public comment.
After that.
Before or after, however that works. But we have to go into executive.
Okay, so at this time, is there consideration or a vote with a motion to convene into executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second.
Chip, if I may, I think, and again, I know it's people here to speak. We have people we have to talk to in executive session, so I would say, I think a motion that we move it, number 2 up first, make that motion, that we move it up right after Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have we go into executive session to deal with that, then come back out and we'll hear the presentation from the trust and public comment. So I make a motion, move it up on the agenda.
Okay.
Am I misreading the agenda?
No, that's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
You moved it up.
We move, okay.
Yeah.
So we are.
Yeah. You can see I'm having a little bit of audio difficulty. Okay, let me try to adjust it again.
We'll do public.
The public.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
How's that for audio? Better?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, at this time, we are going to go to public comment. I only have one person who has signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to sign up?
Just one person speaking for everybody? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that person is Valerie Fleury.
We do have a long calendar, so since you're the person speaking, if you can keep it to 15 minutes, is that a reasonable time? Okay, great. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And we have to go into closed session a couple of times. which
Twice.
takes-
Do we have a microphone? Hold on.
Hold on, that we can fix.
Is that better? No. Good evening. My name is Valerie Fleury. I live at 720 Circle. I'm the parent of 3 North Smithfield students, currently 1 at each school, and I'm here tonight to shed some light on an ongoing issue that's having a significant negative impact on our community: liability and facility use troubles. This evening, I'm joined by board members from the NSPTO, the North Smithfield Athletic Association, the Music Education Association of North Smithfield, NS Hoops, NS Little League, NS Girls Softball League, North Smithfield Youth Soccer Association, and Northern Rhode Island Lacrosse. Over the past few weeks, I've been collecting data on the impact that this problem is having on our youth sports, our middle school teams, and our varsity sports, and also groups in our community. Rather than stand here tonight and provide you with a few examples of the organizations that I'm an active part of being denied access to facilities, I decided to do my homework, dig a little deeper, and find out just how widespread this issue has been. I created a Google survey asking organizations to answer questions like, how often have you been denied access to facilities in town? What reasons were you given for your denial? And how has this impacted your organization or your team? In all, 17 organizations or varsity teams have filled out my survey. I have copies of all of their answers, and it's pretty lengthy. I will give it to you when I'm finished. You're going to see that the data is concerning, and there are very few groups in town that are not being negatively impacted by this issue. With Active Kids, I spent most of my evenings and weekends surrounded by the coaches, organization leaders, parents, and students that have come here tonight to advocate for. These people are the heart of this town, and they work tirelessly to provide opportunities and experiences that will help North Smithfield kids become better people. But they cannot be successful when we have youth organizations who can't afford the insurance to even have their athletes step foot on our fields. We have varsity coaches who are willing to give extra time and energy, are being told they're not allowed in the gyms or the weight rooms. We have nonprofit groups that raise thousands of dollars a year to support these programs for our students, having to cancel fundraising events. We have our own high school seniors being denied school facilities to complete their senior projects. Furthermore, this summer, we had classroom teachers stressing about not being able to access their rooms and therefore not having the time to appropriately set up and prepare for the start of the school year. On top of that, our policies now require that facility use requests be submitted 45 days in advance. We need to do better. I'm hopeful that having the trust here tonight is going to provide us with the clarity that we're seeking as far as specific liability insurance requirements. And while I find it upsetting personally to see fundraising efforts being spent on liability insurance rather than on the kids themselves, I understand that's the world we live in, and it's something that can't be avoided. However, what I'm finding impossible to understand is the ongoing denial of facility use. Neighboring school communities that are also a part of the trust allow their teachers, coaches, and volunteers access to the building over the summer. Our own athletes were even able to attend shared clinics and camps that teams from neighboring communities were generous enough to include North Smithfield teams in. I personally find that kind of embarrassing. North Smithfield kids should be able to have the same experiences here in our own town. North Smithfield is blessed. We have an active community, lots of volunteers, amazing teachers, great coaches, wonderful building administration, and we have beautiful grounds and facilities. And while all the school beautification projects and the endless work of the custodial staff is evident in these beautiful facilities, these school buildings are not meant to be museums. They're supposed to be the heart of the activity of this community. I'm hopeful that armed with all of the information, you're going to be able to look more deeply into this issue and produce a solution that is consistent with Mr. St. Jean's goal of supporting community engagement. I'd be happy to sit down with anyone to help facilitate a plan to streamline the process of securing facility use, because we're all on the same team. We all want what's right for these kids and for this community. Thank you.
Green athletes.
Thank you, Valerie.
And I know we're not supposed to comment on public, but I'm looking forward to seeing your information. And no, we typically don't comment on public comment, but I'm looking forward to seeing your information. I want to go through this, and certainly when we hear from the trust, have a sit down and work out some of these solutions, because there are a number of things happening behind the scenes as far as custodial availability and scheduling that do interfere with trying to utilize the same spaces. But we can work that out. So let us all take a look at this. We've already met once with the trust. We asked them here for a presentation, and we did tell them to be here at 7 o'clock because we're supposed to be in executive session right now, but we wanted to hear from you first. So I think if we don't have all the trust here yet,
Right, so if we can
so
convene into executive session.
executive, come back, hear
and
from
if
the
you feel
trust.
patient, we will go to the other room for that, and we will try to be as quick as possible, and then the trust will present, and then we can have some questions if necessary.
Okay. I think we have another member who wanted to speak to it, open, who just came in late.
Oh, okay.
Annalie,
Yes,
We're still in, yes, public comment.
yes, we're
We're
still
just
in
trying to
public
keep it out
comment.
15 minutes, we can go into executive. And get back, but. We'll get back when we get back, yeah, hopefully.
Thank you. I'm Ann Lilly. I live at 47 Maple Avenue in Forestdale, and I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission. And I had just wanted the school committee to be aware of the codified legal basis of the Parks and Rec Commission, the purpose of which is to promote and coordinate the needs of multiple recreational organizations in North Smithfield, to assist in the administration, development of parks and recreational facilities and programs within the town for all the residents of the town, to recommend to municipal council, boards, or agencies any programs it determines to be in furtherance of and improvements to recreational opportunities. Now, the Parks and Rec Commission is made up of 7 residents that reside in the town that are voting members of the commission. But in addition to the appointed residents and the voting members, the Director of Public Works is a non-voting member. The Parks and Rec Program Coordinator is a non-voting member of our commission. And a school department employee who has active involvement with school athletic programs and school athletic field use who is recommended by the superintendent of schools shall be a non-voting member of the commission and need not be a resident of the town. We don't see anyone from the school show up at Parks and Rec Commission meetings. I don't think that being involved with the Parks and Rec Commission may be a total solution to interfacing with all of the groups that need to use recreational facilities in the town, but I think it would be a good start to build a working relationship and to look at what priorities lie right outside of the school, but would benefit the whole town. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
In public comment or.
Is anybody online? To speak, I mean?
No.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay,
trust is
so
here.
rather than leaving you, the trust is here, so we are going to have them answer some questions for you.
Evening, how you doing? I'm Ian Rizwan, I'm the Executive Director of the Trust, and with me is Colleen Bottioni, who's our Director of Member Services and Operations. So we're happy really to answer any questions you might have about use policies, to give you what our recommendations are, and we're certainly happy to discuss it. But we're gonna throw this one out to you and picking it up.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Holding the microphone.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Is that a little bit better?
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
It
yes.
looks like you just won an award too.
Absolutely, yeah. This is probably one of the nicest ones I've ever gotten too. So, yeah, as I said, we're happy to answer any questions. We can certainly give you our recommendations on, what we propose and why we do it. But I think it might be a little bit easier if you have things that you'd like us to address specifically.
Would you mind just giving an overview of the interlocal trust and how you fit into insurance and?
Sure.
Okay.
So the trust was established in 1986. It is essentially an administrator of a self-insurance pool. Back in the 80s, when the commercial insurers pulled out of the market, people wouldn't insure cities and towns, they wouldn't insure school districts. So what ended up happening was various states, through their leagues of cities and towns, created insurance trusts essentially to, again, administer a self-insurance pool. So the trust as an entity provides property liability coverage, workers' compensation coverage. We have a health pool, a dental pool, group life program, myriad loss prevention programs that we do on behalf of all of our members. And so while we are not an insurance company under our enabling statute, for all intents and purposes, we look like an insurance company. We issue policies to our members that outline what the coverages are. We develop premiums and we charge them to members based on member experience. But really the biggest differentiator between us and any kind of insurance company is that we do provide loss prevention programs to all of our members. We have ergonomists on staff, we have retired police officers on staff, we have building inspectors, and we have a full crew essentially of trainers that do everything from workplace harassment avoidance training to HR development. We work with members who don't have an HR department or who do and need assistance in terms of developing policy, making sure that we go through all the CBAs and make sure that they line up with whatever the particular policies are. So again, we've been in existence since 1986. We have as members 37 of the 39 cities and towns, 34 of the 36 school districts. We've been doing it a long time and we've had a great relationship with our members throughout that period of time.
Yeah. Please.
Want me to hold this for you?
Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, so building off of what Ian said and who the trust is, the trust has been working with the school department for many years in reviewing policy procedures, making recommendations, etc. One of the major recommendations the trust will make to its members is regarding building use. Because while they are public buildings and they are available for the public, there needs to be some parameters and understanding that the school department is not liable for everything that happens in the building when it is not their operations. The school is here to have a learning environment, athletic facilities, etc. But when outside groups come in to use your facilities, you want to make sure that you're protecting the school department for any undue liability that is not your responsibility. So in doing that, the school department crafted a building's use policy that we reviewed and provided recommendations on insurance limits of what we think should be in place. Our normal recommendation to members when they ask us, what would you think should be in place for insurance limits, is to say that we always recommend that you match the level of liability that the school department is carrying. However, we do understand that there are some circumstances that some organizations utilizing your facilities may not carry the levels that the school department does, but in no case should you ever accept lower than $1 million. Throughout our conversations, the conversation evolved or surrounded around the use of boosters and athletic groups, civic organizations using your facilities. If they are not part of the school department, they are separate legal entities, we would require or not require, we would recommend that you obtain insurance certificates from them evidencing their liability and naming the school department as an additional insured. Specifically, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, most organizations have liability insurance in place and would be able to name the school department as an additional insured. So that's where we are with what our recommendations are. It now is up to you as a school board, as a school administration, to take those recommendations and to amend or add them to your policy as needed.
One thing I would add, just before you jump in, is that one of the other things, we do this obviously for the protection of the school department and the taxpayers, but we also do it because we want to bring to your attention so that you can bring to the attention of the entities that use these buildings, that they do have liability. Lots of them think, oh, well, we'll just use the building and whatever happens, happens. And a lot of these folks are either involved in unincorporated associations, in which case they have personal liability they don't know about. They think they're doing a great thing for the community, and all of a sudden they find out that they're going to lose their house. So one of the things that's very important for us to do is make sure that we educate you as members as to what the school's liability is, but that you can convey that to anybody that's using it to say, listen, you really ought to be protecting yourself. If you plan on, hosting an event, you ought to make sure that you have coverage, because you could be individually liable for, a third-party claim. We can do that.
I do have a question, and you may have partially answered it, but I'm hoping you can be a little bit more specific. I'm wondering if you can explain why nonprofits like the PTO, the Athletic Association, the Music Volunteer Association, volunteer groups that support our kids do not and cannot fall under the umbrella of the school department insurance.
Because
Gee, the microphone closer.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
I-
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Could you repeat that question?
I can repeat the question, yes. I'm just wondering if you can explain why nonprofits like the PTO, the Athletic Association, the Music Association, the volunteer groups support our children. They do not and cannot fall under the umbrella of the school department's insurance. If you could just explain for everyone here why that is.
You hit that right on the head with the first words that came out of your mouth, which is they are nonprofit organizations. They are not part of the school department. We will cover volunteers, but we cover volunteers in very specific circumstances where you've identified that it's a particular volunteer for a particular purpose. So if it's a chaperone, for example, for a school field trip, that kind of thing, that's great. However, some of these you don't have any control over how some of these nonprofit organizations, and when you say nonprofit organizations, that assumes that some of them actually are incorporated under the Nonprofit Corporations Act. Many times these groups get together and they think, well, we're just a nonprofit organization. They don't file with the Secretary of State's office. And again, those are situations where they can have individual liability. The reason they can't be covered under your coverage is because you don't have any control over them. You can't tell them how to raise money, who has to be in charge of it, what they have for fiduciary obligations, any of those things, you have no control. So if we're picking up the liability, or the school department is picking up the liability for those people, you want to exercise that control. You wouldn't just, agree to indemnify and defend somebody walking in off the street because you don't know what they're going to do or when they're going to do it or how they're going to do it. So again, as I said, under limited circumstances, we can add volunteers under the policy. But generally, when it's an organization like this, it's incumbent upon the organization to do things the right way, which is to incorporate with the Secretary of State's office, which is to get insurance, which is to make sure that the people who are volunteering to do the work that they do are adequately covered.
Ian, Mr. Ridley, I'm sorry, a quick follow-up. Like you said, volunteers, you said chaperones. Can you just expand a little more on like at what point are we, where's the line between there are chaperones and people who are volunteering versus say an athletic association, which is running the basketball league in the gym? Is there a dividing line?
There is, and a lot of it is, it's basically duration and scope, right? So if you have a volunteer, it's for a very discrete event. One of the things that Colleen and Phil will talk about is one of the options that we do have available for groups that want to use facilities is we actually have a program where they can get one-day insurance for, an event that they may want to do. And again, Colleen can kind of fill you in on that, but the reason that we do what we do is because at that point, whoever the teacher is that's responsible for that particular field trip or whoever the other, school employees are responsible for ensuring that that chaperone does what that chaperone is supposed to be doing on that particular day. And you will take on liability for that person. So that's the reason that we'll cover that, as opposed to kind of some other organization where you have absolutely zero control over who its members are, what they do, how they raise funds. I mean, if they're out selling drugs and they're taking that money and they're contributing it, it's wonderful that the school's getting money, but that's not where you want to be.
If they just as an example too, for instance, a PTO that is running school events, while we all agree that that's for the betterment of the school, for the students, et cetera, they are a separate entity that is making decisions on their own of what types of events. They have their own board that makes those decisions. They collect the money. They determine how they're going to use that money to fund certain projects, equipment, et cetera, for the school department. You really don't have any say in that. So it goes to the care, custody, and control. On the volunteer side is those are usually that are events that are school department organized and administered and managed. So it could be that if there's an after-school program that is run by this some teachers as part of their job and requirement, and it's run by the school department, volunteers would be covered. If there's, as Ann said, a school field trip that is organized by the school department, it comes before you to get field trip authorization as a school function, and then the volunteers are asked parents to go on to the trips. But usually if you don't have any say in the management or how the funds are spent or how they're collected, then you don't have any administration over that, and nor do you have any responsibility for those volunteers.
Could I ask a follow-up? So if I hear you correctly, in order for these nonprofits to be protected and not have to have their own insurance, they would have to be a wing of the school. They would have they would have to formally be connected to the school. Is that the only solution so that they don't have to seek out their own insurance? And if so, are there other school districts that have done that?
So, I will tell you from personal experience that, not to get, but I'm on a treasurer for my local high school boosters club. And one of the first things I asked is, what do we have for insurance? And we didn't have any. So our first job was to go out buy the insurance. Nobody wants to spend money that you raise for funds to put towards, in our case, athletic purposes on insurance. But as I always say, never sit on a board unless you ask if you're covered by insurance or what insurance you have, right? Secondly, you have to work with your school departments to understand what their policies are. We report to the school department as a courtesy what events we like to have or what we will be doing, and we run by all our events by the superintendent so that they're aware when it's marketed out that it's coming their way. But in no way can they reject, deny, or do anything for the fundraising event. So I guess if a PTO were to be run and operated by the school department and the superintendent, the business manager, and at the direction with school administration, there would, as a committee, yes, but the minute it becomes there, and it's always been that way.
The other thing I'd mention is that while, everybody thinks that their PTO or their PTA is unique and it's great that they're doing what they're doing, there are national associations as well. And so they can obtain insurance through the national organization, and it's really inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. So it's not as though they don't have any options. They're not calling up, Amica and saying, hey, what can you give me? There are options that are out there. And as I indicated before, we even have a program through the trust for one-day events. Gather Guard. So, there are options that are available. The other thing that, again, one of the things that you could do as a department to protect yourself, obviously, is to get indemnification and hold harmless agreements. But those are only as good as the paper they're written on. And if the entity in question doesn't have assets, or the people that are involved don't have any assets, you're not protecting the school district. So you have a fiduciary duty as a committee to make sure that you zealously guard the school department's funds. If you're allowing others to jeopardize those funds, you're not exercising your fiduciary duty.
I have a question. So the trust also covers the town. So if Parks and Recs is running an athletic event, or they had the fireworks, whatever it may be, they are already covered?
They're covered,
through their policy, but if they need to use our facility, would they still be covered?
yeah.
You
So
know what I'm saying?
I
Because-
do, but
So if it's an athletic event or a sports team that
Yeah.
Parks and Recs is sponsoring, but they need to use the school facility.
I'm gonna
They're
tell you
covered?
something you don't want to hear and no school board or school committee wants to hear. Is that you don't own these buildings. The town
The town
technically,
does,
yeah. So they're not using your facility, they're using their own facilities. It just happens that you have care, custody, and control of these particular buildings and the fields. Now, your budget is separate item, so you maintain the fields, however it happens to be, but
But it's
technically,
just saying, okay, additional insurance, there's no need for
No.
it when it's something that the Parks and Recs is sponsor.
right. And if Parks and Rec is sponsoring a program and it brings in outside entities, if they, allow the local soccer club to run a tournament on the fields,
Well, that's, I
they
guess, the
should,
question.
we will tell them, you need to get those folks to have insurance and in the town as additional insured and the school department.
Okay,
And just as another aside too, that routinely our members, so that you're following your own policy, that if the if the town is using the facilities for athletic events, the town we can issue on behalf of the town an additional insured status to the school department, vice versa, if you're using their buildings for functions. And we routinely do that between town and schools, just so that you're following your own policies. And I think that's done here.
any other questions?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that was brought up, which I've been struggling with, is senior projects and fundraisers. Now, sometimes the senior project or the fundraiser might be a basketball game in the evening between a couple of our schools and our staff. Sometimes they're opened up and invite people from the outside community or maybe another district. Can you tell me how that works, what that liability looks like, and who is at risk if something happens during one of those things?
Because the school department is authorizing that and sanctioning that,
Mhm.
that becomes an event. You can ask anybody that participates, if there are outside groups or there's outside individuals that come in, ask them to sign a waiver, a hold harmless agreement. That way you can best protect yourself. Ultimately, the liability is going to fall to you guys. That is covered. We actually have also, a lot of times with seniors, for example, they do a senior project and part of it involves working at some company to gain some life skills. Technically, they're covered under workers' compensation as well, but that's under the employer's workers' compensation program. So the school has some liability for supervision, but that employer is going to have the responsibility for covering that student for workers' compensation. So these all kind of tie together. There's no one size fits all, but in the circumstances you're describing, your best bet is to make sure that as you establish these types of events, that you look at who the participants are going to be. You determine what the risk is going to be. Are they outside folks? If so, they should be signing waivers. They should be doing hold harmless indemnification agreements. If it is solely within, if it's the junior class versus the senior class in kickball or something like that, that's different. That's a school sanctioned
Right.
event. It doesn't matter that it happens at 8 o'clock at night under the lights or whatever it happens to be. It's still a school sanctioned event. If they raise money, as part of the thing for the project, or somebody, is putting together a uniform program, then that's great, but that is all covered because that's under the auspices of the school department.
Okay, so the student who is doing the fundraiser after school in our facility, who brings people in from outside, that student or his or her family is not at risk if something awful happens, the school gets sued.
They will be at risk as
They,
well.
they
Yeah.
will be at risk as well. So how do we protect the student and the family from getting sued because they're doing this marvelous fundraiser as part of a senior project?
And that's where this Gather Guard program comes into
Gather Guard,
place. They can
okay.
just, they can
And
go out
that's just a
get
couple
that.
of $100.
Yep.
Depending on the size. Sometimes it's less. And if they're doing a fundraiser and they're going to raise $1,500, $2,000, the prudent thing is to just pick out a gather guard for that evening, for that event. In the case something awful happens, nobody loses a house.
Or, yeah, or in the
Okay.
event that the funds get misappropriated.
Okay.
Because the school has sanctioned the event and all of a sudden it disappears and the people that donated the money for a specific cause find out that that wasn't the case. You know, they're coming after somebody. And the homeowner's insurance for the parents is not gonna cover that. So that's,
Right.
again, this is one of those things where we say, this is for your edification, but it's also for the education of those people that are undertaking these events. Because frankly, part of the learning process is understanding the obligations that go along with these things.
Maybe we need to clarify a little bit as well, that the insurance is for the school department as the entity. It does not include coverage for the students. So while they're here in the building, they're attending for academic purposes, et cetera, it's the school department that is the entity that is insured. And so if there were something were to happen to a student, there would be third-party liability. They would then file a claim against the school department. We would defend as appropriate and necessary for the school department. So I think that's important to know, which is why Anne's suggesting that the gather guard policy be purchased for the student. And while it's an academic requirement that they have a senior project in place, you know, going out and having 500 people come on to a facility for a fundraising project isn't necessarily part of the curriculum.
Okay.
So I think that's where we're trying to make the distinction.
And so you mentioned like the PTO, a lot of the rec leagues, there are national insurance programs for a couple $100. They can just get it or whatever the price is, just to cover themselves, the organization, and the volunteers of the
Yes.
organization.
It would be for a year, and you could even, if there's not an organization that's that offers that, like a PTO or the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, if an entity just wanted to go to the local insurance agent, they would be able to find coverage for them as well. And it would be for a full year and it would cover all the events. They would ask what types of activities, what are your exposures, and then they would rate the policy according to what types of activities happened.
And while it will protect those entities, it will also protect the school district, because even though you'll have the coverage through us,
Right.
you'll be named as an additional insured on that policy.
Right, and we typically ask, when anybody provides us a certificate of insurance, that they name the town of North Smithfield and the North Smithfield School Department to protect North Smithfield, everyone, taxpayers and such.
And again, there's some other recommendations that we've made relative to limits, but you should also look at things like aggregates, for example, because if it is a policy that extends out more than a day or 2 days or whatever, you don't know whether the claims have been made against that. And if the policy is limited by an aggregate, then you may find yourself without coverage. So those are some of the things that you're going to want to look at as well, which again is one of the kind of the value adds that the trust brings, which is if you get the certificate, you go, I have no idea what this means. Send it to us. We're happy to go through it with you. We'll explain each line item. We'll tell you if it's okay or if it's deficient. So those are things that we do regularly. We have Colleen looks at them, general counsel looks at them, I can look at them, our underwriters look at them. So, you know, we see them all the time.
So, your general recommendation is that school department, that organizations match the school department's level of coverage. And I know that our level of coverage recently changed, right? So for my own benefit, the history of this was $1.5 million before. No, I had that wrong. Okay.
No, yeah.
Right.
There you go.
It's been 3 for as long as I can remember, and we found that asking people for 3, I just want to say, like, asking people for 3 is almost too much of an ask, right? It's the right thing to do is to ask for the 3. So it says that we request that they meet our coverage limits. We understand that that could be a bit pricey. We looked around the state, they're anywhere between 1 and 5. Most are 2 or 3. We landed at 2 and I mean, to your discretion, if there was going to be a 5K and you weren't comfortable with 2, we can come to you and, you know, we just don't have a policy that speaks to what would we do? What wouldn't you be comfortable with, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought that 2 million was a safe starting point for now.
So the policy you guys have reviewed, it's in line with what other towns are doing. And I guess my second question is, sorry. Gotta be louder.
Bring it closer, bring it closer. Yeah, all right.
I also want an award. So my second question is about organizations that might have different levels of risk. So we have athletic organizations that are probably higher risk than an organization that wants to use the library for their monthly meetings. The policy as it's written now is a blanket level of coverage for everyone. You mentioned discretion around, higher risk events. Do we have that type of discretion that could be baked into this? I know that creates a new problem where somebody has to be responsible for making those decisions. But
You do have that
are there
discretion.
towns that do that?
Yeah, and you have that discretion, and it's not mandatory, it's a best practice, it's a risk recommendation. I'm gonna tell some tales out of school right now, which is that we have a wellness program that we run through the trust. And one of the things that we really like to do to get engagement is use local instructors for things. So we might have, for example, somebody that comes in and teaches a yoga course at town hall or at one of the schools or whatever it is. They're a sole practitioner, they've got their own little yoga company. They're not putting up a $3 million limit in most cases. So we look at it and we say, okay, there's 4 participants. We know what the area looks like. We know that, for example, there's no sharp objects, not a lot of glass around, whatever it happens to be. And whatever they have that we think is reasonable, we'll go with that. And so cities and towns, school departments do that on a regular basis. The thought process behind having this as the ask is because this is where you want to start. And if they can do it for you, great. If they can't, then you have the conversation about what's reasonable. The only thing that you really want to be careful about is you don't want to get to the point where everything is kind of arbitrary. Because I know this guy, he's been in town for 10 years, so we're only going to have him, do $100,000 worth of coverage. We don't know this person. That can be a factor. It can't be the sole factor. So you just need to be really careful. So the point is, while you do have discretion, the less you have to exercise discretion, the better off you are.
Yeah, that's where I fear that we run into issues, like you're not treating everyone the same, you're not treating everyone equal. We looked at some of the differences between 1 million and 2 million. I don't know any districts that go below 1. We looked at the price difference and it's very small, so I don't know.
I might have missed something on this, but either one of our guest speakers, will the trust give us some like risk analysis in terms of like saying, look, this is the event we're thinking of having run, how much do we want to have for it? Because like you said, the amount of coverage we might want for somebody running the yoga class in the gymnasium is probably going to be less. I'm guessing it's going to be less than if we run the race and we have up to 300-400 people in the race. And frankly, we don't really know what our potential liability is appropriate for if we run a 300 or 400 person race. And we mentioned that because that's a particular issue that's come up in the past and a number of times in the town and some other events too, like the race in particular has come up a few times.
Yeah, and I will tell you that our loss prevention department is really good at looking at risks associated with things. Colleen's actually been in this business for a good 2 or 3 years. She's been doing this a long time. She's seen a lot of risk. She knows how to evaluate risk. Our underwriter is fabulous at doing it. That's basically part of his job, which is to analyze risk and assign an appropriate amount of premium. So, if there are questions, we're happy to provide some guidance. I don't think you want to reach out to us every time you're going to have an event. But if you're on the fence about something and you say, yeah, this one doesn't smell right, or whatever it happens to be, we're more than happy to provide you any guidance. And again, look at whatever documents that you need us to look at to make sure that it's appropriately recognizing that level of risk.
So if I understand you correctly, both of you correctly, so 1 million is sort of like, that's at least a minimum, a bare minimum. Less than 1 million, but that's a low floor, in other words, and sometimes it could be 2, 3, depending on the risk involved.
Could I follow up with that question? So if it's, what's the premium when you jump from, you know, 1 million or 2 or 3? I know it's different, every case is unique, but.
It really does. It's gonna depend on what the risk is that's associated with it. I mean, you could have, you know, we've looked at, you know, like these Gather Guard programs, for example. If it's a wedding reception that they're having at, you know, the gazebo in town and they're serving alcohol and you've got, I mean, those are whole different things. Again, it comes down to you to kind of take a look at what that risk is. You're gonna talk about how many people are involved, you know, who's bringing what, is there supervision, what are the ages, those types of things. So it's gonna vary. But again, we're not talking about huge numbers. It's not gonna be the difference between $100,000 for the policy and 20,000. It's gonna be the difference between maybe, you know, 600 and 800.
If anybody carries a personal umbrella on your own personal policy, if you look, you'll see the difference is significantly less than what you're paying for that first million.
I have one more question. So it was brought up as far as our coaches and the weight room and such. So if a coach is not in season and it's an out of season coach, are they covered? Or are they not? Because that's been a little bit tricky.
If they are recognized by the school as a coach, even if they're not in season, they're still gonna be covered because you're still gonna have liability. And I can tell you that personally, I'm a volunteer hockey coach. And so, you know, we do things both off school grounds and on school grounds and in season and out season, but we're covered and we report ultimately. You know, I'm responsible to the athletic director, who's gonna be responsible to the superintendent, who's gonna be responsible all the way up. So that, again, comes under that kind of care, custody, and control, which is that school department or the school district has said, we recognize you, we recognize this is what you're gonna be doing, and these are the parameters. Now, if I do something outside of the scope of that, and I'm not an employee, then, you know, that kind of changes the equation. That's gonna be a defense for you to liability. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, even as a volunteer, if I'm identified as a coach and I'm responsible for having those students, you know, wherever it happens to be and whenever it happens to be.
So
yes,
it's for the year.
there's coverage
So it
for
would
the
be for the
district.
School year.
It's really, you know, as long as it is a school sponsored, the academic calendar, for example, this doesn't really govern. It's really your policy year. It's policy year, policy year.
So I'm not sure that was the original information that we received.
So-
What about something like a captain's practice?
Oh, that's different.
That's
No.
unsafe.
Okay,
That should never happen anyway.
that should never happen.
So, and I would say, go back to the weight room analogy that while yes, if the coach wants to, obviously most athletics you do in the weight training outside of your season, usually with maintaining during. However, we would advise that you have a weight room policy, that you also have to have inspection of your equipment. You also need to make sure that no student, regardless of what they're under 18 or over 18, never be in that weight room alone, that there has to be an authorized person from the school department monitoring that weight room at all times.
So it must be the coach or a teacher or an administrator
Or a
with that student.
volunteer coach who, as long as they're appointed with specific knowledge of a responsible school official, you know,
So-
Ian's point of being a volunteer coach.
So our coaches, volunteer coaches, they've all been, they all have BCIs, they've all been approved by the school committee. They're okay. They
They're
would be
fine.
covered. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just, I don't know.
Just make yourself volunteer. There has to be appointment.
There is,
Yeah.
yes, we do that, yeah.
And you have to make sure that that person knows what their responsibilities are in that weight room at that time, and they can't just go to the weight room and then take off because the kids want to, they have to be supervision.
And candidly, as any kind of coach or a volunteer coach particularly, you don't want to be the only person in that weight room with students alone.
Mhm.
You just don't. Well, that, again, from a liability perspective, you're covered. I mean, I wouldn't advocate for it, but I'll tell you, you're covered.
Can I ask, how many organizations do we have that have this type of coverage requirement? I know that we have, like, you know, people doing one-off events and stuff, but you know, annual requirement, like how many organizations do we have?
There's a handful that they already had.
Is it less than 10 or? or?
Yeah, so like the PTO they carry their own coverage, the NSAA, they carry their own coverage, so basically what we're looking for annually, unless it expires, is like if they're gonna come and schedule 12 meetings 1 month, say, so we would ask for the insurance and the certificate of insurance, and at that point, we would review it. If we had any questions, we give it to the trust, and if it's not right, unfortunately, we have to send it back, and it has to be right. And we have it on file, and then if it's gonna expire, we wouldn't schedule out past the expiration. We would just get a new one once they re-upped it, that kind of thing. So it's those bigger organizations that are their like own entities that they are probably covered like all year round already through their coverage.
What about like town rec?
I don't know who runs the town. It's probably not the town.
Well,
I don't
rec
know.
leagues have to be insured, the league.
Yeah, like
has
we'll
their
have
own
like
insurance,
national
their
Little
own
League
insurance,
insurance.
youth
Yeah,
soccer
yeah,
league has their
yeah.
own insurance. Basketball or
That
one
would be
or
separate.
fields or something like that.
So yeah, we have a third party that uses the field, rents the field. They would be getting the insurance certificates. When we used to do it, we would get the insurance certificates from like Express Football or something. Yeah.
So I guess my related question is, and I might get beat up for this. Uh, we have these organizations that we have these long-standing relationships with. They're so important to our school community and you know, driving athletics, our music program, everything. I mean, does it matter who pays for these? Can the school department give money to these organizations if to cover part of it?
No, I don't think that is. I'm looking at the trust right there.
We wouldn't weigh in. I mean, that's
All right.
that's a district determination. Whoever pays the premium pays the premium. We wouldn't weigh in on that at all. The propriety of it, I don't know, I want to be up for election when that happens.
Well, that's the reason I asked how many organizations are there? I mean,
Yeah.
are there 6 or 7? If they're struggling to make the $800, we talked about this when we were talking about the senior project. Bill, you brought up, can we just pay for it? If it's a couple $100, so I don't know.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but I know for some of our youth sports programs, like to go to the $3 million policy was going to bankrupt the.
Yes,
sports organization. They
we know
could
that,
not
yeah.
put it, it's gonna be $100 per app, which we can't do that. So in situations like that, and I hear you, Fran, that sounds great if you wanna help, if you're asking for the 3 million, but what I'm hearing is that the 3 million isn't a requirement. We would sit down with the school board and say, this is really what our risk is. Can we talk about the lower policy?
I think we need to follow up and maybe sit with the trust again, with Parks and Rec, with ourselves, go through some of these lists and try to work this out in the most easily understandable, equitable manner. Because whether some of the information I had is slightly different than previous, or just because there's so much of it, it's my understanding of it. I'm not getting, some signals crossed. I think we owe it to the community, the town, and I did not realize Parks and Rec had a member space for myself or you to appoint. That was news, and I'm glad she came in and said that.
I think that the athletic director is actually listed in the.
Maybe, but we've changed so many different ADs. I think it maybe lost track of that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no, I think
yeah, but
in the charter or something like that, I could be wrong, I don't
all
want
right.
to.
So I think that, we still have a pretty full agenda and,
Yeah.
I thank you. But we're gonna gather some more question and information and work at continuing to refine what we need to protect everyone and yet also function as a community.
Right,
So-
thank you, Valerie, for giving us the list. I hope the trust answered some of your questions. I'm sure there will be follow-up
but we'll sit down again and go over it.
Yeah, I would just say, in closing, at least from my perspective, I just want to make sure everybody understands the intent here is not to preclude people from using the
Right.
facilities or any of that. We're just trying to look out for the best interests of the district, the taxpayers, and frankly, the people that are utilizing the facilities, so they don't put themselves in a situation unknowingly that is going to be problematic. So
Right.
it's really more of an educational thing than
To that point as well, when Ian's original, point many minutes ago that I've been here for a long time. Previously, when this came up many years ago, we did meet with all of your local groups and give them the opportunity to ask us questions directly. And I would offer that service as well, that we could come up here and talk and answer questions, so that we can eliminate as many meetings as possible for you all. But, and, you know, we want to make sure that the town and the school are both protected.
Okay,
Well,
very good.
thank you.
Thank you.
But I,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
One more
it's very, very quick. I've actually, as far as the insurance is concerned, I've heard you talk or mention two words, recommend and require. And I'm assuming that you recommend, we have to require. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point, is there a motion to convene into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246(5)(a)?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And imagine, and that's for advice, legal update and advice of a potential pending litigation.
Okay.
Just add that. Add that.
Have that, please.
Which is perfect segue to after meeting with the
Exactly.
trust about protecting the
Exactly.
district.
So, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
We need a roll, no, we need a roll call. We're supposed to have a roll call.
Roll call,
Yeah.
please.
On it to come in and come out.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
We are in executive session.
So I'm gonna pause the video, turn it off, and then when we come back, I'll resume everything. Pause.
And for the record, no votes were taken in executive session. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, discussion vote or other action. Is there anything anyone would like removed from the consent agenda?
Just one question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
But just only because I spoke to the superintendent about earlier, just want to clarify, like, for the paving and everything, that was not brought to bid, that was through the master price agreement, we took it off that, correct?
Yeah, I believe so, Alicia.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's right, okay.
And just to clarify, because I also had a question for the superintendent, that includes widening the driveway
Yeah,
at the bottom.
it says paving in a CS parking lot, but it's actually widening that entry exit up the hill. So the 2 lanes are now going to become 3. One of the corners where it's very, very difficult for a bus to make the turn, that's being widened. An area that the ice tends to build up, that's going to be built up. So, and the work, the widening, we'll prove it, should start, next week after, and the paving should be done over the Thanksgiving break.
Okay. Anything else? I do for myself want to remove item 9 for discussion. And so I'm looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda minus item 9.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 9, which I spoke with the superintendent. I am really struggling for our early learning students to allow Chromebooks. I realize it's a tool, but every person in this room went to first grade and second grade and third grade and all through elementary school without a Chromebook. There's scientific evidence that it is not good for children with ADHD. It is a dopamine burst for these children. I have a hard time with it. I want them with paper and pencil to learn fine motor skills. I want them reading books. I want them reading to one another. I don't want them reading off the screen. They're all going to be wearing glasses and they're all going to have carpal tunnel one day. I don't like it. I don't want it. And in good conscience, I cannot vote for it. So I had to put it out there. I will not support it. Our children are learning anyway how to use that software with mom and dad's phone or an iPad at home. But the idea that we're starting first, second, third, I don't think they belong in the elementary school. A teacher can have it. They can plug it in and use it on a big screen. I don't want my kids being tested at that age, not on a computer. And if RIDE has a problem with it, they're going to have to figure out another way to do it. I don't agree with it. So I cannot vote yes on this. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to say.
And I have to appreciate the fact that the whole time you looked at Claire.
Because I don't
Well,
want this.
I
I don't want.
I don't.
No,
No,
because I think you are amazing. I think you are amazing. And I have a problem with any curriculum that comes out of RIDE that to me was a marketing ploy years ago. Just like they changed the way they taught kids to read. And then they figured out 20 some odd years later, that didn't work. We have to go back to the way it was. So if it's about testing, forget the Iowa test. So they have a pencil and they fill in the little circles. But I am not going, I don't want these screens. I don't want them. I don't know. I don't like it. The children are too young. Put Legos in the classroom if they're done with a task. Do something, cut up paper, make friends with your little person next to you, write them a little note, talk to them. Children cannot talk to anybody. They don't look up, you call their name. I can't imagine they're doing this and the teacher calls their name that they look up immediately. They become so absorbed in it. And as far as learning, as I helped somebody, I'll say somebody this summer with math, and it's all about clicking the right answer. And every time it's a guessing game. So your test results to me are not accurate. It's a guessing game until I finally say, here's your paper and pencil. You do your math your way. I'm going to do it my way because I don't know your way. We'll compare the answers and then you can put it into this machine. But I don't think it's good for our kids. I don't think it's good. I think it's wrong. And again, it was a marketing ploy because they couldn't sell any books anymore. Everybody had the books. So now we're going to sell something new. We're going to sell a new curriculum. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want it. But I'm only one vote.
Well, you might be two.
Okay, and just to say, as we talked about it, this isn't a one-to-one. We don't send the Chromebooks home with the little ones. It's just a classroom resource.
300 of them.
Mhm.
300.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Chromebooks. It's a down payment on a house. Okay? So I have a problem, but it's not even that, because if it's in the budget, we have the money. I don't want our little children, our little people learning from this. I have a problem learning from this. I am better holding a book. They are better writing things out. You know, I've spoken to a few teachers. I've spoken to some retired teachers about it. And you show them a triangle and they're just clicking, where if they had a paper, they could say there are 3 sides. They could look at it, they could draw it, they could figure it out. But they're clicking the wrong answer. Do we keep the children back when they test poorly on these things? Do we ever keep them back?
Want me to respond? Can I respond?
Well,
I hear you, and honestly, I agree with you to a point. So if you walked into our kindergarten, our first grade, our second grade classes, you're not seeing 25 students sitting with a Chromebook in front of them, ever. You just don't see that. And it is used as a tool. We do value books. And we were never a district that went all in and didn't buy the textbook at the high school when it could be just everything online. We have textbooks available for any student who wants to have a textbook at the high school. For the little ones, it's having a class set for the teacher, but they use them really sporadically. We teach our students how to use them properly because they're exposed to technology at home. And usually it's for more of a practice. So they're not learning the math or with the Chromebooks in front of them. It might be they're watching a little video that's either reteaching or pre-teaching, maybe a lesson that the teacher did while the teacher has stations going on. So the teacher may say, this group, go on your Chromebook and you can practice or rewatch a video that teaches the same concept that I taught. And another group is doing something and a teacher is working with a group, and then they rotate around. So it may be part of a rotation, but it's a very small piece of it. And you just don't see that. If you walk into any of our classrooms, you won't see students just glued to a Chromebook.
So 300 of them is to test. We're
So
testing.
it's
If
for
we
the
need that
teachers
many.
to have, it's for the teachers to have a class set. We do, and that was the other thing, that we do test our students 3 times a year on it. We use an online assessment. We value that assessment. We do a lot with it. Our students, but we also take it with a grain of salt, just like if it was paper and pencil and it was a multiple choice question. We know that students can guess. So we recognize that also. There's many different types of assessments that we have for our children, but that is one of them. And it really gives us a red flag if a student we may need to look at that needs some additional support or some extension activities as far as where they are and what they're doing. It helps with differentiation sometimes if the student needs just extra practice. And it's not necessarily the student just doing problems on, it could be watching reteaching or watching a video or an extension because a student's ready to go on to another level and the rest of the class isn't. But it's not used throughout the day, all day long at our elementary school. And if you remember at our last school committee meeting, we so appreciated that you funded additional books for us. And that was all for kindergarten and first grade. We had found that we, during the pandemic years, had lost some of our books. And so we have purchased more of those leveled readers for the classroom teachers. They now have like more than enough and enough copies that when they call that group over, every student has their own book, but we spent thousands and thousands of dollars on those books. And so we absolutely and encourage the students working with books. They're not being taught anything initially on the computer, but we do use the assessment 3 times a year, and it's a diagnostic assessment. We can track progress. We can also, just determine where the student is, and it helps and helps our own instruction. So we take that information and we can fine tune our own instruction based on how the students are doing on that particular skill. But that's 3 times of the year that we use that.
I can appreciate that, but I can't support it.
Okay, no, I value your opinion. It is interesting just how there's always a pendulum and we always try to find what is that sweet spot. And so for years, we're encouraging teachers to use technology because teachers didn't know how to copy and paste or didn't know how to do some of the basic things. So we were constantly trying to shift some thinking to encourage using technology. But then with the pandemic, we felt, and technology right now, we find that students are on laptops or tablets too often, and we know that a lot of home time is also on tablets. So we have scaled back. We certainly have in the last year or two.
Yeah.
No, the YouTube needs it.
So I'm not going to try to change your mind at all or anything. I think what Claire said is absolutely accurate. I think the pendulum has swung back and forth. I'm an early childhood educator. I am trained early childhood. I'm trained early childhood special ed. I do not think that Chromebooks necessarily belong in kids' hands. We have done extensive work with our families and our faculty on The Anxious Generation, which is a book by Jonathan Haidt. It's research-based. He did a very large amount of research about the implications of technology on kids. We are also using Chromebooks to teach digital citizenship. Unfortunately, kids have access well beyond what they should at an early age. We are working with 1st and 2nd graders that have been exposed to pornography on their parents' devices. We have to give them the tools on how to combat it. No different than the way that we do DARE for our kiddos. We're not going to give them drugs, but we have to talk about drugs in our school. So I'm just saying, and I completely back Claire, and I invite you, I implore you to come to our schools and to walk through. At any point, you will see centers going on. One of the centers may be a 10-minute time on a Chromebook to, like Claire said, to practice a game or whatever. We are telling our teachers, we started off the year telling our teachers we do not want our little ones on the Chromebooks, and they have abided by that. Our kids are having greater conversations. They are engaging in more academic conversations. So I understand the frustration with it. I really encourage you to read The Anxious Generation, because as a grandmother, as a mother, as anybody, like, the technology is scary. We have to educate our kids. And unfortunately, we have to do it with the technology that they already have access to. And it's scary. I don't know about it. I'm not all that much older than them, but they have grown up with more technology than I have. My kids have grown up with more technology, and it's just part of what we exist with now. But I do encourage you to come to my building, walk in, come to my preschool. You won't see a Chromebook. You'll see an interactive P-board that the kids are going up to, and you'll see them drag and drop and do weather on it. You'll walk into a kindergarten class and you'll see my main teacher teaching a reading group. You may see a group working on how to form the letter A. You may see a group with a Chromebook, and they are never left alone with that Chromebook. They are always adult supervised. So I just really want to point out that I understand that there's 300 Chromebooks being asked for. We have a lot of kids in our kindergarten class.
No, and I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I had even subbed as the TA when you were teaching prior to this.
Right, which was still 26 years ago, and
And I know that. My issue being, they are now coming out with data that says it's not good for them. And I understand we're going to have a class that Adam is going to do, parents only, explaining all of these things and what parents could do. But you're putting this in the hands of first graders, which, yes, they've gotten, like you said, their parents' phones or whatever, and they're accessing things that are inappropriate. But you also have children at the age that probably forget to zip their pants coming out of the bathroom.
Pulling up their pants.
I didn't want to say that.
They do.
I didn't want to say that, but thank you.
They absolutely do.
And so we're gonna give them a Chromebook and we're gonna test them on that while they're sitting there with their pants unzipped. I can't do it. I cannot do it. So,
Absolutely.
and that's my feelings. That's how I feel. And it's not necessarily just my grandchildren. It's everybody's child and grandchildren. Middle school, okay. At the elementary, no. No. So, questions?
I do have a question. Does this have to be decided on tonight? Is there a time limit on ordering these? Or can we?
There's a note about tariff if we don't order it now.
Pricing will expire.
The pricing will expire?
Yes.
Because I really would like to walk through and, think about this, actually. It's definitely food for thought, but I certainly would like to investigate it a little bit more.
Benefits and like, some of the programs or the assessments. If you took a standardized test to see how the students are doing, you'd get those results. Whereas some of the assessments are, adapt to how the students are doing. So if they're getting some wrong, they'll get an easier problem to really find out exactly where the student's strengths and weaknesses are. So the data that we get from that student really helps the teachers to make decisions about instruction. And it is very valuable. So I feel like, and our teachers use some, I guess they're apps or some applications that are very engaging to students. And so instead of doing maybe a worksheet for practice, it's a gamified. And they're doing their 2+2 kind of thing. So they're not on it all day. It's definitely used sporadically throughout the day for pre-teaching and reteaching. But I know our teachers find it to be a valuable resource. And I know we as administrators and the teachers find it to be valuable when we have data days, when we make decisions about students. That's not the only piece of evidence we have. We have other pieces of evidence. It's not, we read with our students. We identify where their strengths and weaknesses are within the reading. And then we have another piece of assessment. And we try to triangulate our data, our assessments, and make the best decisions we can about students. And so it's just one small piece, but it is an important piece.
It does.
Ms. Nato, come back. Thank you for getting up and sharing your perspective on this. I just have one question. Do you feel that this adds significant value to those classrooms? Thank you.
I do.
And follow up, it sounds like the laptops are primarily a mechanism for test preparation, right?
No.
No?
Nope, it's pre-teaching, reteaching the standard. And
Okay.
so if the standard in third grade is multiplication, it could be a video that the students watch after the teacher already taught it, or it could be a practice game that they're doing, applying that multiplication.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how often would it be in a typical week? How often would they be opening their laptops?
I would say that over the course of a week, probably about maybe an hour. Over the course of the week. When they initially log in, they log in to Clever, which is kind of like and Adam, correct me, but it's almost like their landing page. And on that landing page is a very specific set of programs that they're able to access. So they don't just open their Chromebook like you and I would, type in any type of like website that they want to go to and go visit that. It's a very controlled setting. So then they may have access to their math, the math game that is affiliated with our math curriculum. They'll have access to the online tools that are associated with our reading curriculum. They may have, trying to think of there's like only like one or two. So they probably have a landing page of like 5 things that they can access, especially our K-1-2s. It's a very controlled thing because we want it to just add to their education experience and add to their education. We don't want it to take away from it.
And I will acknowledge that. When my boys were at the elementary school using the laptops, it was on lockdown. They could not, access a lot of things that obviously we'd be able to access. But I would be concerned about maybe some of the sacrifice that we're seeing with some of the tactile, the writing. I mean, very basic things. Without sharing too much, I asked one of my boys to write their signature and they couldn't sign it. They couldn't sign their name, and I was surprised.
And I wonder if you were to ask, and I'm sorry, I'm not asking you guys, but I wonder if you were to ask a lot of our kindergarten families if they're able to write their signature, if they'd be able to, if the parents of those kindergartners. I have 2 children who also went through the North Smithfield School Department who they have signatures, right? But there's not like a signature like that. So I understand, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's a real challenge for us. Like, we are on like unprecedented times, so.
If it's of any concern, I've lost the ability to handwrite. I don't do cursive. No. I am almost as old as you.
I'm older.
I grew up
Right.
before the computers and I lost the ability to do cursive,
Where are you really going?
right?
All right, so are you asking to hold off on this?
Well,
Or
if it's a matter of the dollars. Yeah, I mean, if it is a matter of the dollars, no, I mean,
So there is, we do have a quote. The quote will expire, but we could always then go out and get another quote. Could be a little bit more, but if you are hesitant as a board, then, or you want to view some classrooms, we would love to have you in. So you decide if you want to vote on this or table it.
I'm okay voting on it. I think it's a tool. I agree with what the chair is saying about, I agree with everything she's saying, but to me, again, I think there's too much reliance on the computers. But that's just across the board. So I think that it makes sense. To me, I think it makes sense to get them now before the tariffs come on. And I know there's talk about they may come on, they may come out. I know that's a very moving target in terms of what will happen. But I'm thinking that if we get these, we'll be able to use them for something else, right? If we don't use them we'll incorporate them into something else. So it's more about getting before the tariffs come in, which seems like they're coming. So that's where I'm coming.
I'm okay.
Okay, so looking for a motion to approve. Get that to my agenda.
Item number 9, sure.
To item 9, approval to purchase Chromebooks related licenses, services, and protective cases from Wally Computer for grades 1 and 2. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to the superintendent St. James report, please.
Yeah. All right, let me just switch gears, bring up the share the screen. Oh, there it is.
Page 7.
So at this time every year, I give you a enrollment breakdown as of October 1st. This is the magical date for the Department of Ed, where every district takes a snapshot and see where we are at with enrollment, look where we were previously, and then start tracking from this point on. So this year, the way this is set up, again, these are the totals as of October 1st. All right, so this year the district had 1,648 students, which is 11 students more than we had last October. And you can see last October, we had 1637, which was 26 students less than we had the year before. And that was 44 students more than the year before that. So again, it's looking at, we had a bit of a dip in a population from last year. This year, we grew by 11 students. Now, the amazing ones, and what caught us by surprise this year, last year, our kindergarten class was 79 students. This year, our kindergarten is 136 students. We've had to add 2 classrooms. And so the kindergarten is always, I'm not going to say fun, they're nerve-wracking, because in 2022, we had 99 students and we expected 99 students, and then suddenly 121 show up and we have to add more classrooms, and we haven't budgeted for the extra teachers. So kindergarten is very frightening. They're as cute as can be, but they're the scariest group when it comes to budgeting. So, and if we look at this giant kindergarten back in 2023 of 121, they got even bigger in the first grade, moved up to 129, and they got bigger yet this year, 132. All right, so again, I'm going to share this out with you, and you can take a look at the growth and the trends, and we can look at the bubbles and and that helps us sort of prepare what does the middle school look like in a couple of years as the elementary bubbles are coming through.
Can I ask one thing?
Sure.
So I know we're in contact with the town at certain times about developments that are going on and so
You're going to
forth.
get this. Yeah.
All right, so the new developer who just bought Tupperware building
Mm-hmm.
and will probably move quicker than the last owner could have a big influx.
But yeah, actually I have a breakdown of all the development projects in town, which are going to have a massive impact on the schools. And so we honestly need to be preparing for this years in advance before it happens. Because if we go down to the totals, NSES last year had 583 students, this year is 617. There is very little room at the inn at this point. So, and one of the things that has been a concern that I brought up multiple years is full day pre-K. There was a 2028 aspirational date for full day pre-K. There are so many cutbacks in the federal budget for education. The state has no money. That aspiration goal is just kind of being set aside for now. So I'm not worried about full day pre-K being mandatory in the coming years, because the schools, NSES doesn't have room, and the state doesn't have money, and Department of Ed federal funds for education are being wiped out. So the money's not going to be there for that. So I have to think about that as far as personnel, budgeting, and spacing. So, but general enrollment, NSES is becoming problematic with space. We're okay. Everybody still has a classroom. We're not doing music on a cart, art on a cart. It's not there yet. But again, that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to think about as we look at enrollment from year to year, and especially with the new construction. Now, over in special ed, last year we had at this time 265 students. This year, slight increase, 271. Out of district, now, out of district are those students who have such significant needs that we cannot provide them in district. It might be a residential placement, it may be a clinical placement. But we try so hard to keep our students with us because it's better for the community, it's better for the parents. We're not putting kids on an hour bus to go to some outplace district. It's better for the budget because any one of these students, the outplacement, tuition, transportation, support services, it can be over $100,000 for that one student per year. So and Christine has been doing a marvelous job trying to bring more students back. So 23-24, there were 15 students who are out of the district. Last year, 13. As of October 1st this year, 11 students. This can fluctuate wildly. It depends on who moves into town. It depends on real trauma, family conditions. I mean, there's so many things that can change this. Transition students, we hold on to, some students qualify for additional services and we provide till the age 22. All right, so these are your 18 to 22 years old who are not ready to go out to support themselves in the community. So they get additional services. And the service only, that's the early childhood, preschool, homeschool students. We provide special ed services for a lot of homeschoolers. So right now there are 17. MLL are multilingual learners. This is our largest single group that's growing. All right, so in 22-23, we had 25 students learning English. 23-24, 30. Last year, 47. This year, 59. This year, we hired another MLL teacher to help with the amount of students we have. We're probably going to have to put in for next year's budget a third one. Plus, we're also wrestling with how we're going to follow the state mandates in that by 2030, all teachers who work with MLL students are going to have to be certified, which are two classes, sorry. And if you're a content area teacher or an elementary classroom teacher and you have MLL students, you have to be certified in the techniques of teaching English, to multilingual. We back up. I started my career as an ESL teacher, English as a second language. At some point, it turned into LEP, Limited English Proficiency.
They're always changing.
And then it became something else. Now it's MLL, Multilingual Learner. All right. And I say this, I have a master's in ESL, MLL. All right. But I'm having a hard time keeping up. So I can imagine what it's like for you.
Those 59 students are spread over the 3 schools.
Yes.
So is the teacher hopping to the 3 schools?
There's we have one elementary, one at secondary.
Okay.
We're going to have to extend this. So there's too many students to service. So.
Thank you.
All right. 504 special accommodations numbers have stayed roughly the same, even though we went up more students. We have one less student. We get a lot of students with 504 accommodations, often for time management, anxiety, number of different factors. Our CTEs right now at the high school, we have 39 students from outside the district paying tuition. Their districts are paying tuition to attend CTEs at North Smithfield High School. So there were 9 new enrolled students this year. And we anticipate 10 of our CTE students to graduate at the end of this year. All right, but altogether, it's 39 students. Homeschool is another one that continues to grow. And again, this is not just North Smithfield, this is statewide, nationally. So, you know, if you look back to 2021 during the COVID, a lot of homeschool. All right. I don't know. Thanks, Adam. Things started stabilizing. We dropped to 41 homeschoolers, then 29, then 27, and then last year it jumped to 46, and this year at this stage we're at 49. Now, of these 49 students, 17 of the families, I don't have a breakdown of how many of those students, they've always been homeschooled. You know, they moved to North Smithfield, they were homeschooled wherever they were living before, they continued to homeschool. You know, and then there were 34 families, current families, that at some point were had students in the school and then decided to homeschool. Now, I'm just going to drop down here. The breakdown is at the elementary level, there are 21 students who are homeschooled. And again, I should break down how many families that represents, because a lot of times we have families with 3 kids. So, middle school, 10, and then high school, 18. Now, typically, back in the old days, elementary had the highest number of homeschoolers. And then you get around middle school, they started coming in. High school's a little more challenging to homeschool when you start getting into algebra and, you know, physics and such. The trend that we've seen in the past couple of years is when a student gets a summons to go to truancy court, they often homeschool. All right, when the grades drop and they may have to do credit recovery in the summer, there's a shift to homeschool. We've also seen a shift to homeschool when grades drop and because if you're failing a couple of classes, you cannot play football or basketball. And so sometimes we'll see they're failing a couple of classes. They'll go to homeschool and then they'll submit that they've passed all these classes at homeschool so that they can play athletics again. Getting creative. We're going to have to look at policy, you know, so now also the enrollment, the kids who choose to leave us to go to a vocational, a CTE, a career and tech school, or a charter, right? And so here's the breakdown of the different programs, CTEs, charters, and et cetera. How many students we have at each of these places this year, how many we've had historically. So the total students, North Smithfield students who are going to out of district, CTE, charters, vocational schools, 86. All right. Last year it was 97. But here's the thing that I also look at is that's 86 total. How many were new this year who chose to go to a CTE or a charter or a vocational? Last year at this time was 48. This year is 19 new students. So again, people choose the different schools for different reasons. But I have to take a look at how many we have coming in, how many are choosing to go, where are they choosing to go, why are they choosing to go? And that helps us improve our schools, our programs, you know, to be competitive, to meet more needs. I'll share with you later the number of students that withdrew from the district and why they withdrew. I mean, there's transferred to outside district in Rhode Island, transferred to homeschool, transferred to, or just dropped out. So we transferred to a GED program. But what I do want to focus here is that, and this will also be what I share with you. These are the planned developments that will impact our enrollment, and we really have to look at this and as a community plan for the future. So final improvement of a 30-unit residential condominium development, including 6 low to moderate income residential units. Building construction is currently underway. This one here, 128 single-family home development master plan approval granted and extended until March 2025. No changes status, project not likely to be under construction for another 2 to 3 years. So we have time to think about what's going to happen when 128 single-family units come online. There's a 12-unit residential condominium development. It's expired. It may not be advanced, but there's a 12-unit residential condominium development here. There's a 4-unit residential condominium and a proposed 62-unit 1 and 2 bedroom low and moderate income proposal. So no formal application to date, but these are the things we need to look at, especially at the elementary, being quite crowded right now. What are we going to look like in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Because we're very inconsistent. We're not as trends used to look like that. Oh, we're just going to continue to have fewer students. Some years we grow, some years we stay the same, some years we shrink a bit, you know, so we're kind of up and down. These new units coming on, we're going to grow. That's it for the enrollment. Any questions? Because then I'll turn it over to Claire and she'll do the assessments.
Good.
All right.
As I was sitting here, I was realizing I had a few things that I wanted to add in, but the first would be the cover page. So it's RICAS and PSAT, SAT assessment review. And so, as you know, we use a variety of assessments to see how our students are doing. And so we use formative assessment every day throughout the day. And that's when the teacher will ask questions, find out what the students know, and then they pivot their instruction based on what they get. So those are just a formative assessments throughout the day. Then you could have our curriculum embedded assessments, and that could be like what we used to call like a chapter test or some type of assessments that way. But ultimately, I feel like we are judged on, and we do put some value in, but it's still only one day. It's only one assessment. So as much value as we can, but it's a snapshot of what we're doing and how we're doing as a district. And that's the RICAS and the PSAT and SAT assessments that we have to give every year. And so this really slide is the most important. And so when I'll walk you through it a little bit, but it tells you how we're doing and how we're doing in comparison to the state. Because I could say, oh, we're, 27. Is that good? Is that bad? What are the other districts and where do we land in comparison? And as well as the other states. And so if you look at ELA, which is English Language Arts, the RICAS ELA, we can see in North Smithfield in the spring of 2025, we had 57.7% of our students met or exceeded the standards in English Language Arts. That's a gain of 3% from the year before. And I think what's most important is to see, well, where are we in comparison to Rhode Island? And so that put us, if we ranked the districts, the 36 districts in Rhode Island, that would put us 5 out of 36 for the RICAS. In Rhode Island, North Smithfield is 24% above the Rhode Island state average, which is a nice healthy percentage above. And we like to look at Massachusetts. And so Massachusetts uses the MCAS assessment, but it's the exact same test. We call it RICAS, they call it MCAS. So it gives us a guide to say, where are we in comparison to Massachusetts? And we know that Massachusetts year after year is number one in the nation as far as student achievement. So we always find that to be a great gauge. And North Smithfield is 15.7% above the Massachusetts state average, which I think is a nice healthy spot to be. For math, we are 58.5% above, proficient or exceeding the standards in RICAS mathematics. We stayed the same from last year, so we didn't gain, we didn't lose. We did have quite a gain last year, so we've actually just kind of leveled out, and that seemed like it was the trend across Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We are 6 out of the 36 districts. We're 28.4% above the Rhode Island average and 17.5% above the Massachusetts average. And so before we go on to the other slides, and we'll talk about SAT, PSAT, and then what we do with the data a little bit, do you have any questions about what you're seeing on the screen? Okay. So the next slide shows us our results for the SAT and the PSAT. I'll start with the PSAT. We had 75.8% of our students meeting or exceeding the standards in English language arts. And the Rhode Island average was 54.8 or 21% above the Rhode Island average. Massachusetts doesn't use the SAT, so we can't compare ourselves to Massachusetts, but we can compare ourselves when it comes to the SAT, because Connecticut uses the SAT as an end of year assessment or an 11th grade assessment also. We were 50.4% meeting or exceeding the standards in PSAT math, and the Rhode Island average was 26.5, so we're 24% above the Rhode Island average. And then the SAT is for English language arts. We were 78.8% proficient or exceeding the standards. And one of the things that I did want to mention, that we had 25% of our students in our 11th graders last year exceed the standards, which is a really healthy number. We ranked 6 out of 36 districts. We are 27% above the Rhode Island average, and we're 20% above the Connecticut average. And in math, we had 47% meeting or exceeding the standards. And the standard for SAT mathematics is actually really high. In order to meet or exceed the standards, you have to score a 530, which is a pretty significant number to get on your SAT. And so it is a high bar. We had 47% meet or exceed that. And that put us at a rank of the 6 out of 36 districts. We are 24% above the Rhode Island average, and we are 16% above the Connecticut average. So it was really great results. And I noticed when Mike was talking about enrollments, I looked on the slide and I said, oh, I didn't show the growth. For the SAT, I do know off the top of my head, we did improve 10% in our English language arts, and we improved 7% in mathematics. So it was really a great year. And before we go on and I talk about what we do with the data, I just want to recognize, in order to improve student achievement, so much work goes into that. And it starts with our students. Our students are doing the work, and this is rigorous and it's time consuming, and you have to be engaged in what you're learning. And so our students put the work in, our families are supporting us, our teachers are know the standards, are using the best practices to deliver that instruction. And if a student isn't learning it that they reteach it and present it in a different way, and they take it really seriously. And so this is the work of a lot of people doing many hours of work. It doesn't just happen. So it was pretty impressive, and we were happy with the results of where we are, but we always strive to improve, of course. I have been asked over the years, what do we do with the data? And so we do so many different things. So I figured I would give a couple of examples, and I chose eighth grade because it was so pretty. This is the eighth grade math data over the years. And the progress isn't always linear. Sometimes it's that like squiggly line of progress, but in eighth grade math, it's actually a beautiful line. So I figured I'd put that one up as an example. But you can see in 2021, we really did. The pandemic had a significant impact on student achievement in mathematics. We had 22.4% of our students meeting or exceeding the standards. And then we went over time to 43.9%, 54.7%, to 55.3%. And last year, our eighth graders was 60.8% meeting or exceeding the standards. And you'll see that we had 10% of our students exceeding the standards. And so to me, this is beautiful. This shows that our students can know the information and can apply it. And if you've ever seen any of those assessments, they are rigorous. They really are. And so in order for a student to do well on this assessment, they know the math. And so it's quite an achievement for our students. The next one. And then the next, another thing that we do with the data is that we can look at it all different ways, but we look for achievement gaps. Is there a group of students that are not meeting the standards, and is there any type of disparity in academic performance between groups of students? It could be gender or race or disability, economically disadvantaged. And so I put up a screen of economically disadvantaged because you may remember last year we talked about initiatives in North Smithfield, and one of them was really to close the gap between our economically disadvantaged students and our non-economically disadvantaged students. And so the first two bars, what you'll see is the first bar, this is the 21-22 school year. And you'll see that we had 32% of our economically disadvantaged students meeting or exceeding the standards, and 55% of our non-economically disadvantaged students. And so fast forward to the 24-25 school year, we have 39.9% of our economically disadvantaged students and 65.6% of our non-economically disadvantaged students. And so you can see that all students are improving, not just one cohort of students. And I mentioned this because this is still an initiative, right? So we look at the 39.9. We do know that that's actually really high in the state when we look at how the other economically disadvantaged students do in the state. Our students are at the top of the charts for that, but we will continue that initiative going forward. And so the next thing we'll do, and I stuck with eighth grade, but the next thing that we'll do is then we look by category or domain. How are our students doing? And this informs our instruction and it informs our programming. And so I showed you over the years, and I started it was 2019. So it's 8 SP means spring, to remind me it was a spring assessment, but spring 2019. But we can see by domain how the students did. Are we stronger in geometry versus statistics versus equations versus functions? And from here, this is this information we can look over the grade levels and over time. Are there patterns or are there trends? And do we see that there's a gap in our curriculum and that we want to beef up? Maybe it's statistics or functions or what have you, and maybe it's in multiple grade levels, or maybe it's just one grade level and we want to beef up the curriculum in that area. And so I wanted to show you over time that, because you all funded and supported this, so I thank you so much, but we've definitely had initiatives with statistics and geometry. And if you look in 2019, so that's pre-pandemic, how our students were doing in those particular domains versus how they're doing now. And so really, you funded it, but we've been able to improve student achievement in specific domains. Last year, we paid close attention in 8th grade to functions, and if you can see, we had a 10% jump in functions. So we are targeting not just specific groups of students if there's an achievement gap, but also maybe a specific domain that we want to beef it up within the curriculum.
Can I ask
And
a question?
yeah,
What the heck happened with statistics? 2023. No, in 2023, statistics went from 45% to 74%, which seems incredible.
so that was something that was supported by the school committee, is that we broke up some of our teaching at the middle school, our mathematics, and we have a quarter devoted to statistics, and it backs up like our computer science class. We felt like, and it was honestly many years even before that, statistics and probability, we were lacking, and we know of all the domains, that's the one we all as adults use the most, and felt that it was a priority. And so that is actually students in 7th and 8th grade will have statistics and probability for an entire quarter. And so we increased the time, and in some of the classes, we might have smaller numbers in the classes. And so, and we worked with curriculum, instruction, and all of that. But yes, it was definitely, that was the year school committee funded that position, and we appreciate it, and it's working. And so next, what we'll do, and this is when, if we find something like statistics or if it's functions that there is some type of disparity, then we will say, well, what will we do with that then? And to find out exactly what's going on and what seems to be the problem, when we do what we call an item, it's a error analysis. And so we'll go back to the assessment and we say, well, let's look at all of the function questions that were asked last year, and let's have conversations among our teachers and say, well, why do we think the students weren't getting this right? Is it our materials? Is it maybe not in the textbook? Do we devote enough time to that? How are we teaching it? And so we use a protocol, and that's an example on it, but it's the error analysis protocol. And maybe the errors related to question types or language or knowledge or content or vocabulary, but we have those conversations. And then in the last one, well, what are the implications for instruction? And so we do try to use our professional development time or department time to really talk about how this is going to inform our instruction. And so hopefully that answers some of the questions like, well, we did make some really great gains. Well, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to target and be really strategic with what we're teaching and how we're teaching it to help our students. And that pretty much informs our curriculum. And so, you know, we have curriculum documents for every grade level. They're online if you ever need to look at the beautiful, beautiful documents. So go ahead and scroll them sometime. But our teachers spend a lot of time on the curriculum documents. And so this, I just wanted to highlight a few things because I thought it was so fun and wanted to amaze you all. But a few highlights from this year's data was that our economically disadvantaged students in 3rd through 8th grade outperformed the Rhode Island state average by 21% in math and 20% in ELA. Our North Smithfield students with disabilities improved 3% in mathematics and 4% in English language arts. And we will be actually doing some more focused professional development going forward, working with our students with disabilities and improving student achievement. Our 3rd graders ranked number 2 in the state compared to the 36 districts in mathematics. Our 6th graders ranked number 1 in the state in mathematics and number 2 in English language arts. Our 8th graders ranked 3rd in the state in English language arts and 4th in mathematics. We had 78% of our North Smithfield High School students met or exceeded proficiency on the SAT ELA. Our 11th graders improved 7% in mathematics compared to 2004. And our economically disadvantaged students improved 22% in SAT math in comparison to the economically disadvantaged students of 2024. So although there's work to be done, we have a lot to be proud of and a lot of work went into this. So thank you to the community, to the students, to the administrators. A lot went into it, but I think that we're on the right path. And so going forward, we are going to prioritize the reduction of achievement gaps, especially for economically disadvantaged students. We're going to targeted data analysis will continue to identify and strategically address the specific areas of need. And efforts will concentrate on enhancing our tier 1 instruction, and that's the instruction for everyone, implemented targeted interventions and using data to refine curriculum instruction and professional development.
Thank you.
That's that.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions on enrollment, achievement, we also have the principals. They can, as Jen came up and spoke to you earlier, you have questions like for an enrollment, efficiency, where are some pressure points, some of the work on the achievement, what have you done, what have you seen as being successful. We also have STEAM there for special education and personnel services, and you have questions where they trend is that direction. So, and the night is still young. Oh, it's only 9.
We halfway there, right?
Well, I think part of the issues, which a very good job, very good report, but you know, and a lot of things on here we have to do. But you know, I teach a little bit myself at the colleges, and we have a concept we know, number dumping, information dumping. There's a point that you have trouble absorbing it. So I think that a lot of us, we might have questions for the, we need to reflect, digest some of this stuff. I'm certainly might have some questions. But right now, I think it's myself, but I need time to formulate some of the questions. And we have a lot more to do too.
Okay, well, we'll be posting this online. We'll share it out to you, so you'll be able to see it.
But I don't want to negate the great work that was shown in both these. Personally, Claire's showing some great progress. And I think the numbers are much more longer discussion, about where we're going, population of the state, what do we do? We're not gonna, that's a discussion from give them more data and get into that, because obviously the whole idea is a lot of low moderate income housing is expanding throughout the state. So we're not alone in that. So I think we shouldn't try to do it on our own, at least without consulting with other districts. So that's just my 2 thoughts.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay,
It's very good news.
it is, and thank you. Thank you for all your hard work, for everybody. Moving on to informational personnel resignations, retirements, leaves of absence, and appointments. I just want to wish the very best for the resignations and welcome to those new appointments.
Absolutely.
As far as special extracurricular appointments for 25-26 school year, I guess these are mostly the school improvement teams at the elementary school.
Yes, that list wasn't available during
At
the
the last
last
meeting.
meeting.
And coaching appointments, winter season, do we know if we've now filled all those positions?
Sorry, I'm multitasking very poorly. What was the
Trying to
question?
move us along here.
I know.
Coaching appointments, have we filled all our winter positions for coaches? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as new business, proposed stipend position adjustments, advisors, coaches, superintendent, safety.
So I included a recommendation to increase the stipends for teachers, for extracurricular activities. I think the last time we did this was back in 2021. I think, Gene, you were on the school committee 2020. It's been a number of years. And our stipends have fallen out of sync with other districts, and it was time to make an adjustment. So what you have there is our recommendation on all the different positions and what the new stipend should be.
Do we have that?
It's online.
Oh, all right,
It's in your packet.
yeah. Okay, so we're looking on a motion to approve.
Yes.
So moved. Is
Second.
there a second?
Oh, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 2, discussion vote or other action regarding the trust insurance recommendations for the district going forward.
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think the next step is to break down some of the information further and try to accommodate the different levels of risk, but also gather some information, if we can get it from the trust, for some of the different organizations that there are national affiliates that they can go through, and they can get very low insurance to cover everything they need to do for the year. And again, I want to stress that we haven't changed anything. We're just having to be more mindful with collecting that information. We don't want to tell people, no, you can't use it. But if you have insurance, we just need the certificate to have on file, and to make sure that the town of North Smithfield and the school district is named. So we'll work that out. I also know, and then I heard the facilities use form that we have needs to be adjusted also, because there are certain things on it that apply to a larger organization that wants to rent a field versus one of the local affiliate organizations. So for example, there's a thing on there about a $10 processing charge. That doesn't apply to local. There are things on there that have certain cost things that don't apply to the town. So, and that's broken up in yet another piece that we need to update, and then just sort of, clarify this.
And I think if we can look at, because I know it was mentioned 45 days notice, kind of a long way out if someone is looking to have a meeting in 2
No,
weeks.
no, and again, it's different if you're looking to have a meeting or to use a classroom versus using the gymnasium, or the field or something like that, because these things are usually booked pretty well in advance, and we actually have more teams than we have the facilities to hold. We've looked at expanding we're also landlocked. I mean, the only area to develop and to add something else is actually a leach field, and you're going to get sewage on your feet we've had to move teams off from practicing on the leach field because they see an open green space, so I mean, we're very limited with how much space we have, how frequently it's used. And then the interior is, especially on the weekends, is opening up the building and having a custodian, and we've talked about the difficulties with all having enough personnel to do everything that everybody wants. But we're trying. We're going to try to make it more accessible. Or if there's a reason you can't have something on such a date, more than just denied on your application, to follow up with a reason why, and let's try to book an alternate time when we can have somebody there and you're available.
Madam Chair, I just have a thought on that too. I think, as I was listening to the trust discussions, I think there's things, I know Chris mentioned something about, just we can appropriate the money. We may not be able to do that, but I think there's things we can do to help facilitate fundraising in town. there's things we can do, and I got some ideas, but you're gonna kind of flesh them out. But I think that another aspect of the fundraising could be, if we're speaking to the trust and getting actual like targets, in other words, the X amount of insurance, this is what you need. So we're not just kind of fundraising we're not facilitating fundraising just like without a goal, we have specific goals to meet cover certain things that would help coverage, but to say, hey, look, these are things we can do. I think we can come up with effective ideas to help facilitate some of the fundraising, to help pay for some of these things, well, again, without a school appropriation.
And the other thing that I want to, for the business department and the facilities is to have something that everyone understands. It's very clear. Checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. You're in, you got it. Here's your time. And what I don't necessarily want is everybody coming up and to the school committee and ask for a waiver, ask for this. I'd like to have something that is very clear, very fair, understandable by everyone. So we can have the protection and the coverage that we need, the organization needs, along with the assurances that the facilities can be used and used safely.
Yeah, I actually have an idea, but I want to talk to people about it and see if we can, something I think we can set up. And it's based on something we actually done a few years ago that didn't really work, but
Sure.
we could adjust it.
All right, so, moving on to item 3, discussion, well, is there a vote on that? Are you looking for a vote?
We don't have anything.
There's nothing
I think
really. to
discussion,
on.
vote, or other. I think we had it.
We don't have any specific.
Okay. If we can continue it,
Continue.
and when Mr. Cornell gathers some information, we can do that. On item 3, discussion, vote, or other action regarding the RFP for facilities management and concession operation.
So what you received in your packet is the RFP that we would like to put out, to sort of see what the world looks like. It was reviewed by Ben, by our attorney. He says it looks fantastic. It's ready to go. It's just there for you to take a look at. It's very general. I don't know if we're going to get somebody who can do everything, or we're going to have to break it up into components. But the main thing is to get this posted and see what kind of response we get.
Okay, so an action on that, a motion to put it out.
To approve the RFP, or if you want to make any adjustments, or if you have any questions. Again, we've had the attorney review.
Sure. Ideas on it, thoughts? Okay, so is there a motion to approve putting out the RFP for facilities management and concession operation?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, discussion, vote, or other action regarding electric supply agreement with Constellation Energy in coordination with the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns Energy Aggregation Program.
So this is for a multi-year contract with Constellation and the League of Cities and Towns. It's a bulk buy. There's different price tiers, which Alicia has shared with you. We have a pricing as of this morning on what the energy costs are. So there she goes.
All right, so the pricing you have was as of this morning. It's only good from when they run the rate until 5 p.m. So I need you to approve Terry to be able to move forward and sign a contract tomorrow, and we could do like a not to exceed a rate. Prices did increase last Monday a bit more than we had anticipated. So what I gave you at that time was not to exceed 0.11 kilowatts. I think I'm going to ask if you would be okay with 0.12, and then the final pricing could be emailed in the morning.
Can I just ask a question about this? So the rates vary by how long the contract is, all right.
Right, so that would be the other thing that to discuss here. Is it gonna be the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4 years? So the rates will be different for every single tier.
Does anyone have a crystal ball?
No, no, this is one of those. I know,
The rates are better the longer you go out, the longer
Yeah.
you lock in.
yeah. Yeah,
I don't see electric rates going down.
I don't,
No,
yeah, I don't see that either.
There's,
They're actually relatively low in comparison to where we have seen them. We're at like the bottom, not the very, very bottom. We're somewhere near the bottom.
war in Ukraine, extension of AI data centers. I
Yeah.
mean, there are just so many factors geopolitically and locally that affect the rates, and no, they're not going down.
I don't like going 4 years, but I'm willing to go 4 years. If it's
I-
that's my thoughts,
I
just
think
because. Yeah.
And again, this is the League of City and Towns. This is state, it's a, community aggregate, rate, so.
They're saying that. They don't set the rates, you're saying League of City and Towns is endorsing this, right?
Yeah, they.
Correct, they
yeah,
procured it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They were that.
Okay, so is there a motion of approval for the school committee chairperson to execute an electric supply agreement with Constellation Energy on behalf of the North Smithfield School Department in coordination with the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns Energy Aggregation Program at a rate not to exceed
0.1200 kilowatts.
with final pricing to be confirmed on October 22nd, 2025.
Yeah, so moved.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that is for the 4 years,
Okay, yep, for the 4 years.
okay?
Again, I think we have to, even though we don't really want. 4 years, but electricity is not going
I don't
down.
think it's gonna come down.
No,
And even that's that's the cap. Is that a fixed rate or a cap rate that we've done?
it's a fixed rate.
It is.
It's a fixed rate with, it also includes some, stability in a area of the rate that is called like a daisy, and it's very much volatile, but this just levels everything out for us. It allows us to budget a little better, allows us to understand a little more. So it's definitely not.
It also gives us a beat for some energy consulting services. For example, we've looked at pricing and the possibility of putting mini splits, air conditioning into NSES, right? Every classroom, mini split has its own air conditioner because to do a central unit, it's expensive. Well, here's the thing. We don't have enough power going to NSES. And so one of our conversations with Constellation is, can you help us see what's the possibility of increasing the power into it so we can do air conditioning if we can afford it? And so they will do an assessment. They will help us find grants. So that's another part of partnering with Constellation and the League of City and Towns for these extra things as we're looking to build out into the future.
Travis, I have a question. First of all, I deal with League of City and Towns State, just indirectly, but a lot, so I almost have to trust them. Don't have to, but it's like they deal with a lot of this stuff. But I do know, suppose tomorrow we are in a situation where this is just, suppose tomorrow we don't have that rate available, what do we do next? Like if that 4 year rate's not available, it's not.
Can we send an email tonight?
No,
No, it's only good till 5 PM. I know. If you're uncomfortable and nervous about what the rates might be tomorrow and you're comfortable increasing that rate, you could always do that on your motion. So you did it I had originally asked you to do 0.11, you're at 0.12, you go 0.135. I know, because there's nothing we can do out of business hours. Sorry.
Okay, let's see where we're at
I
tomorrow.
would say, let's see where we're at, and
Yeah.
if we have to look at it again.
We could have.
Yeah,
emergency
okay.
meeting 2 days,
Okay.
Mhm.
Friday, I know.
We're not meeting long enough, you know?
All right, item 5, FY 27 operating capital budgets, discussion vote or other action.
No, I was thinking this, we could just run this meeting all night, and so, you know, tomorrow morning, the new rate will come out, and, you know, you just vote, so.
So I'm just asking you here to approve the budget timeline. Unfortunately, it's already that time again. So we will have the budget books to you by Christmas with the goal of the December school committee meeting. And then we will go forward with choosing subcommittee, et cetera, off to the town due by the first Monday in February. So that's pretty much the timeline. I know it's bad. We're already doing it.
What we
All
did
right.
last year, I mean,
Yep.
this year.
Okay,
Nothing changed.
all right, and moving on to old business, FY 26 operating.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, I think you actually have to approve that timeline.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So move the proposed budget timeline and guidance. The proposed budget done.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Aye. And now we move on to old business, FY 26 operating capital budgets, discussion vote or other action.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay.
Right on.
And item 2 is the second reading of new revised policies, protocols, discussion vote or other action.
I made the changes Bill asked about.
Yep.
Okay.
Again, just to clarify, all we're doing is changing district to North Smithfield district. It's
Right. So it's not as blatantly of a copy paste from the state. It's been somewhat personalized. Okay, all right.
Well, the blue type, you know, no longer the state, the district, says North Smithfield.
Do we want
Press.
all 3 separate or in one motion?
I don't find the one.
I think.
In one motion, to accept A, threat assessment teams and oversight committees, B, school safety teams, school crisis response teams, and school safety assessments, and C, student safety and behavioral health committee.
So moved. Oh, sorry. Second. Then moved, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And I'm just so upset at myself that I didn't put on the new AI policy for the first reading tonight, because that.
Yeah, next. Can we go to executive session, please? Again.
I just would want to see you blow up, you know.
So we're moving on to a motion to convene into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A, immediately following open session. It's Rhode Island General Law 42465A3, discussion vote other action regarding security, including but not limited to the deployment of security personnel or devices. Schools District Emergency Response Plan for 25-26 school year.
So moved, I moved that we go into closed session for those purposes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chair Bartolo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
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 Again, I'm gonna pause the recording.
Where are we going into? Oh.
Oh, okay.
First, we seal the minutes, right? Then we notify the votes,
Are we
then
on?
You're on.
We're on. Okay, I am looking for a motion to adjourn executive session and reconvene in open session.
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Chair Bartolo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
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 Consideration of and vote on a motion to seal executive session minutes pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465C, 42464, and 42465.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we seal the executive session minutes pursuant to the statutes you cited.
Is there a second? Second. Roll call, please.
Chair Bartolo?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yes.
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 For the record, no votes were taken in executive session. And item 4, action related to emergency response plan for 25-26 school year. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency response plan for the 25-26 school year as presented to us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
I say presented in executive session, so as presented in the executive session has not been made public.
Chair Bartololi?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Cannell?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Yes.
And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.